Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Montega, welcome to the IuteCredit Europe earnings call regarding the Q1 results of 2022. The CEO, Thomas Lied, and the CFO, Christel Kurwitz, will give you a presentation on the results in a moment, and the floor will be open for all upcoming questions following the presentation. I'll now hand over to you, Tamo.
Thank you. Tere päevast.
Tere päevast.
Hello, everybody. We have actually also a third presenter today who is willing to take your questions. So besides me, Tarmo Sild and Christel Kurwitz, we have Lilian Guzun, our Chief Executive Officer in Moldova, who also, not by accident, was elected by the Supervisory Board of Energbank to become the new CEO of the bank that we acquired during first quarter. So first quarter really has been extraordinary for the IuteCredit Group, even by my own terms, because if we look at the combined forces of, on the one hand, moving over to new technologies across the group, starting from Macedonia, now we are rolling out new core in Bulgaria and other countries are waiting in queue. Then looking at the new challenges on the markets, and I refer to the war in Ukraine and the uncertainty that it creates also in the neighboring countries. And when we look at the inflationary headwinds, and when we look at the growth challenges still ongoing, like how to disperse more loans to the customers in markets where regulation is taking more and more over, then it has been really extraordinary and truly impressive for us that we succeeded to double our balance sheet. And as of now, our consolidated balance sheet reaches 300 million euros, and the equity inside the group reaches 50 million euros and growing. Today's presentation is also somewhat different because we first time include Energbank in it, with one slide. We still intend to keep the structure of the presentation as it has been historically. So you get an overview of how IuteCredit in traditional sense, the company, the group which bonds you have acquired, how this group works, how its portfolio works, how are its customers doing, how are they repaying, and so on and so forth. So we intend to keep full transparency in this regard. And we, over time, start integrating the bank data into the presentation, but always in such a manner that we can clearly make a distinction between the so-called traditional Iute and whatever we add to it. As you know, that we are in the process of becoming a multi-service financial company. So we no longer do only the consumer finance in installment loans, but we are willing to offer our customers, the same Oleg, Sergei's, or Tatiana's, or Rama's. We want to offer the same customers more financial services, starting from gaining their income into our hands, into the current account that the customers maintain with us, and then into the spending services, how they spend, how they transfer the money, and occasionally also how they borrow money from us in case of need. So this is the very big picture. And now I think after you have seen me and Christel, and you know that we have a guest from Moldova to who you can also prepare and address your questions regarding perhaps the bank or the business in Moldova, or maybe life in general. I know that Lilian is a very open guy who speaks also very fluently different languages, including Romanian. So we can prepare and give you different answers. But first, let's go through the presentation. Highlights. The total customer pool and all the data which I'm giving to you now is without the bank. The customer pool total, we reached 850,000 people. And the net loan portfolio grew not very significantly to 108 million euros. And the main reason being here that the customers' demand for new loans was smaller than we expected. So accordingly, if people are more conservative because of inflation as the main reason, then the growth is not that rapid. The total revenue we made was close to 60 million euros, which is the best ever first quarter we have seen. Previously, historically, fourth quarters, third quarters have exceeded it once, but as first quarter, it's the best. And also the customer performance index across the group has turned out very good, perhaps even too good. Perhaps even we have been too conservative in our loan approval policy, but it is turning upwards and it's above 90% mark. And in the net portfolio, the non-performing loan share turned down to 11.2%. So just purely from economical viewpoint, these numbers show good progress. And the progress comes as a result of digitalization, the ongoing victory march of MyIute app, which by end of first quarter was downloaded by more than 245,000 people. And the number is still counting. Our strategic objective is to reach 1 million customers. So we can only reach it through digitalized processes and by giving customers opportunity to use the smartphone to use our service. We also continue investment into our IT platform. So the next big thing that we want to see is instant loans. And by instant, I mean that the moment you apply, the moment you also get the response. It's not too much different from instant money transfer from account to account. I'm not giving you any promises as to when will that happen, but this is what we do and we will not stop. And this also explains partly the operating expenses that we have reported for first quarter. Now onwards to the footprint in different countries. There are some changes. First change is that Albania has become our biggest company and biggest market inside IuteCredit Group. Albanian net loan portfolio by end of first quarter reached 43 million euros. Also the loan disbursements, we call it payout, reached 17 million. And Albania has bypassed Moldova, which is now our second largest market, excluding the bank. And as you see in Moldova, the net loan portfolio almost touched 40 million euros level. Macedonia is also gaining pace. Macedonia is using the new technology platform. We see also inside the group that the operating expense to loan disbursements or operating expense to revenue ratio, internal improvement is most significant inside Macedonia. So we see that the new technology works. Macedonia net loan portfolio is slightly above 20 million euros. And now if you go to our two, I could still call them startup companies or startup countries, then Bulgaria is showing very good development in terms of loan disbursement. It's on a par with Bosnia currently and increasing. Bosnia continues to be our child, which causes the most of the challenges because of the local regulatory environment. As for the second quarter, we are still not giving up and intend to continue operations there. But really, this is a country where we should look at it with some kind of care and cause to ask a question every time, does it make sense to make business there or not? So far, we're still hopeful and optimistic that we can make it work. So overall, Albania bypassed Moldova, two big countries, and Macedonia following up. And Macedonia showed actually also very good growth during first quarter in terms of their portfolio and performing customer numbers. And Bulgaria is accelerating very well. And we are also continuing to look around on the market, which markets to enter or which companies to buy. I do not think that Energbank will be our last acquisition. So if we look at the revenue map in the operating highlights, we did a small trick here still. We showed the revenue, group revenue of 15.9 million euros during first quarter 22, slightly less than 16.4 we had in fourth quarter. Historically, first quarter has always been slightly weaker than the fourth quarter, for instance, because of the Christmas. But we added here already a small rectangle designating the revenues we earned with Energbank while we became its controlling shareholder, but without operational control. So you see the development here, and we are actually nicely on our target. Initial revenue target for year 22 was set at above 72 million euros. I believe that it is going to be more than 75 million euros based on what we see happening right now. The loan average maturity is slightly becoming shorter. We think it is related to, again, larger conservatism on the side of customers. So the loan amounts getting slightly smaller, and the loan maturity is also becoming slightly shorter, just because the free cash flow, which is in my hands as customer, my free cash flow or disposable money to serve the loans is becoming slightly less, just because I need to spend every month more on my home, on my food, on my kids' education, on transport, etc. Total assets growth in first quarter, slight growth, and that's mainly because we acquired the financial investment shares in the bank. APR showing constant trend in the decrease. If I haven't said it before, then Albania introduced a new law which sets a cap on the effective interest rate. I believe it was somewhere in 50% mark. And we are expecting also regulations in Moldova. Besides this, there is not much to be added, and we can move over to the next, which is to describe briefly Energbank. Maybe next time it will be somebody else commenting on Energbank. Lilian, with your permission, I still go through this slide very quickly to tell people what it is. So first, it's an entity on its own. It's operating on its own. It is profitable. It does not need any capital injection from IuteCredit Group, and we could even let it be as it is today as a passive financial investment. That, of course, is not the plan. The plan is to integrate the bank with the rest of the group in terms of the business metrics, in terms of the technologies applied, in terms of some process management and process management principles, and so on. But even if you look at the bank today as it is, we see that it's a nice, profitable bank, has a good reputation inside the country. It has about 72,000 customers, some of them overlapping with Iute, but mostly not. Its first quarter revenue showed a nice progress versus the last year, 3.7 million euros, and it also achieved net profit during first quarter 1.2. It was profitable also last year and the year before. The total equity in the bank is 43 million euros. If you wonder how the equity jumped from 34 to 43 million, the reason is that IuteCredit bought most of the shares of the bank from the bank itself. And the money which we paid for the shares entered the bank treasury and forms part of the bank's own equity. Energbank serves both corporate and retail customers. There is some overlap with the services that Iute currently provides, because Energbank also does consumer loans. Obviously, it does it in a much slower pace and in much smaller volume than we do. By end of first quarter, we obtained about 83% shareholding. As of today, our shareholding in the bank is at 95% mark. I think this is enough for time being, and if you are willing to ask more questions regarding the bank, you are more than welcome. Two more things to comment. Loan repayment behavior. I said initially that across the group it has improved to 91%, which is very good, even very good to the extent that we need to start asking questions whether we have been too conservative in our loan approval, and we should be slightly more tolerant towards loan applications and accept also maybe slightly weaker customer performance because the collection still works relatively well. But this is a matter of internal discussion. What you see on this slide is that the CPI is at 91%. You see that the trend is upwards. And what you also see is that the collection of defaulted loans is keeping on a steadily above 40% level, meaning that from the defaulted principal amounts within 180 days, we collect more than 40% of the principal. Having said that, you also see that a slight decrease between February and March 22. So we have seen those decreases also before. We need to watch the trend, but we always look the DPI in correlation to the CPI, and CPI is going up. So the ones who perform, they perform and even better. And if the loan defaults, then from the collection viewpoint, 40% of the principal is saved within first 180 days. Overall vintage, how much money we are able to generate from the principal amount that we invest, that we pay out to the customers. You see that the vintage shape in the big picture looks very much the same. Actually, maybe for future presentation purposes, we should even make it less bundle and consolidate a bit more. But what you can see is that the minimum vintages that we reach with our paid out are at around 135%, meaning that for every €1,000,000 we lend out, we eventually are able to get back in cash about €1,350,000, and within a period of about 25-26 months maximum. So I have spoken very long by now. It's a record. It's 18 minutes. Crystal, it's your turn.
So good morning from my side as well. So as Tarmo already said, our adjusted EBITDA was €6.2 million. Year-on-year basis, it increased by 21%, even with a more conservative approach of revenue recognition. And let me once again point it out that from 1st of January, there is no accruals from the moment a loan goes to default. No accruals from day T+51. And even with that, we recognized more revenues compared first quarter of 21. Our net loan portfolio increased only by 2.5% from €105 to €108 million. As Tarmo also explained, yes, our OPEX or operational expenses increased, and mainly because of the IT development, because of the new loan system, plus marketing activities, and plus acquisitions of Energbank.
And maybe there is something else cooking. You don't know. You know, we still spend money on something which is in the kitchen, is not coming out, but something constantly keeps going into the kitchen.
Exactly. And yes, as you can see, our net profit decreased, and we ended up with net profit with €0.6 million. And the main reasons behind are higher amortization cost, because we started amortization of intangible assets, mainly our new loan system from 1st of January, and because of higher interest costs because of the Eurobond €75 million. Moving to the next slide, and income and EBITDA. As mentioned, our total income was 15.9 million euros. We recognized 13 million euros of primary revenues. We collected 2 million euros of penalties and around 1 million euros as other income. Our cost to income ratio increased, and the reasons are already explained. And also you can see that yes, our net profit margin was 5%, mainly because of the higher operational cost, because of the higher amortization, and because of higher level of capex. Our capitalization ratio was 24%, quarter-on-quarter basis, no increase or decrease, slight decrease compare first quarter of 21. And our interest coverage ratio remained to the same level without bank, and that was 1.6. Moving to the next slide about our loan portfolio. Basically, result is the same as it was by end of 21, and which also confirmed by slight improve of CPI 30. Our NPL ratio was 11%, which means that 11% of our customers are in delay more than 50 days. Our impairment coverage ratio slightly decreased from 66.9 to 66.8%, and that's also confirmed by CPI 30 performance. And the total value of impairment cost during the first quarter was 3.7 million euros. And moving to the next slide, as already said, we ended up with 160 million euros of assets. Yes, we still had quite a high cash position. So net loan portfolio plus cash position, we ended up with 72% from total assets. By end of first quarter, we had interest-bearing liabilities pretty much the same as it was reported by end of 21, and that was 136 million euros. So for summary, I would like to say that, as you can see, our performing customer pool is increasing day by day. Our CPI 30 is improving, and even with more conservative revenue recognition, our primary revenues are increasing also day by day. So based on that, I am absolutely positive that our net profit margin will be reported soon, once again as 10% and not anymore as 5%. So I will hand it back to Tarmo once again.
Thank you, Kristel. Strategically, we continue investment into technology, and we continue rolling it out. As I said, Bulgaria is next, where we are doing it now, and thereafter we'll follow our the biggest crown jewels inside the group, Albania and Moldova. And thereafter, what we expect to have is number one, digital wallet, and number two, instant loan decisions. So this is very important, and if we can make instant loans and if we can offer digital wallet to the customers, then of course we have more markets to go after, where to offer our services. Or if we joked historically that if you can make it in Moldova, or if you can make it in Albania, then you can make it anywhere. It can become true. And I think with this, it's time to give the opportunity to you, dear participants, dear investors, for your questions and to see how well we have served your trust. So please, I give the floor now to you and to our moderator.
Thank you very much, first of all, to you, Tarmo and Kristel, for your interesting presentation. You have two options to ask your questions, either via chat and we will read it out for you, or alternatively, you can click the hand button on the lower side of your screen and then raise your hand, and you can directly approach Tamo and Christa for your question. We will directly start with that. There is one question from Frank Lehmann. Your line is now open.
Let's see if that works. Hey, good morning. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Frank,
you.
good morning.
Excellent. Greetings to Tallinn and to Chisinau in that case. First of all, congratulations for that purchase of the bank, which of course you seem to have executed as a management team aside of running the standard business of IuteCredit. I'm completely intrigued by buying your own, by effectively buying the own shares held by the bank, which you later then own the bank. You know, kind of an interesting structure. Before I run the numbers myself, would you be able to just share two points with me? One is, what was the final purchase price? What was the cash money left IuteCredit Europe for the purchase of the 95%? What's that euro number? And the second point would be, what's the current book value of the bank in the accounts of IuteCredit?
Crystal, I think I need to hand over these questions directly to you. First answer starts with number 2 and is 2-digit number. The second, but your question was how much money left the group actually. So
right, what was the purchase? You know, when you bought the shares, and of course you bought them in the market and you bought them from the bank. So there is cash leaving the, how do you call it, the holding or the parent, and what was that amount to get to the 95% shareholding of the bank?
Okay, I think it's very easy to say the amount of money which the group treasury has paid out in order to become the shareholder in the bank.
Was the 20 million euros, and
20 million.
20 million euros, roughly speaking, and from which 10 million euros remained to Energbank equity. So all in all, you can see we have also pointed out that basically 10 million was recorded as one-time revenue from.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, okay. And what does that all materialize into the book value in the consolidated accounts? What would be the book value of this 95% within the IuteCredit holding then? 20 million.
Yes.
It's not 30.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay. Because I saw that uplift of that 10 million in the. Okay, so the book value in the purchase is 20 million. Okay. And regarding the bank, I have a couple of more questions. What's the functional currency of the bank? Is that euros or is it Moldavian lei?
I think we know the answer, but it's time to give over to
yeah, okay.
Fine. So let's start from very, very simple question. What is the operational currency of the bank? You are muted.
Where is he?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so bank operational currency is Moldovan lei, and de facto bank operates currently with 3 key currencies: is Moldovan lei, euro, and US dollar. Some recently time it was also 2 currencies, Russian ruble and Ukrainian hryvnia, but for known reasons, for the time being, bank do not operate with these 2 currencies.
Okay, and if I may, 2 more questions regarding the bank. The refinancing, does that happen through deposits or through term deposits? Can you maybe just shed some light on that? And in addition, I think you have what we call a passive overhang, so you have more liquidity than assets. What do you put the overshooting liquidity from the deposits? Would you put that to work? If you can just shed some light on that.
Yeah, probably I can start with the second question. So our extra liquidities in Q1, we invested in state bonds. Currently, there is very unprecedented situation in the market where the government is offering 17% per year. 17.
And MDL.
Yes. And that's even better. So giving you the example, so you can offer a loan to legal entity with a 10-12%, or you can give the loan to the state with 17 to the government, and it's short term, it's for 3 months. So now banks which has extra liquidity, they invest in the state bonds. So the bank, Energbank, invested this money in state bonds.
And does the regulator give you a concentration risk regarding lending to the government, or is that something where they apply a zero risk weight?
No, as far as I know, the only restriction is that the minimum you are obliged to buy every release. So if I remember correctly, every bank which holds a license has a limit of minimum 3%. So minimum from what is put on the market, 3% you have to buy. But currently, banks, to be honest, are fighting for this state bond, so there is a competition for them.
And that liquidity overhang, that's also coming from the deposits. So do you actively solicit the market for deposits right now to get the cash in, to put it into the government and into clients' loans, or?
No, I can tell you, we had an extra liquidity coming from our deposits because there is a volatility, for the customers. So customers not really willing to withdraw the deposits. It's on one hand. So Energbank didn't face the situation other banks faced during the start of the war in Ukraine, when people start heavily to withdraw deposits. This didn't happen in Energbank because the structure of our deposit portfolio, the age structure, it's mostly retired people. It's very interesting. And again, another unique situation in Moldova. The bank has a very good reputation and very good position in serving retired people and serving, and receiving the pension. So there is a product when you receive a pension, it goes directly to your deposit account. And a lot of retired people, they simply leave this money in the deposit account. So this creates for a bank an extra liquidity, and also the stability of this cash position.
And of course they get everything is in the local currency then. Okay,
yes.
I understand that. And so the refinancing comes from those deposits. Are the deposits then, do you offer in the market kind of 3, 6, 9, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years products, or? The
most popular product is from 12 to 24 months. And currently interest rate bounced from, I would say, from 6 to 12, what I see in the market. Local currency, again.
Okay, sure. You have to, and coming back to the banking situation in Moldova, you do not bank in Transnistria, right? You bank in Moldova.
Yes, it's prohibited to bank in Transnistria. The legal entities from Transnistria, if they want to have a legal status in Moldova, they have to open a bank account in Moldova, not vice versa.
Okay. And the currency hedges, do you run any FX positions on the refinancing to your asset side?
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? I'm not sure I understood you.
No, is there an FX element between where you refinance yourself in deposits? Do these deposit holders maybe put their cash with you and say, hey, this is now dollar denominated and we're happy to take 1%, but we hold it in dollars, and you lend it out in Moldovan lei, or do you have a match here?
No, it's mostly, most of the deposits are in leis. So if we speak about individuals, so it's in leis and there is no need to hedge them.
Okay, but you mentioned that the dollar plays a role in your balance sheet. Where does the dollar come in here?
It's mostly come from the legal entities, which makes trading with non-Europe Union countries, for example, with China. So most of the trades with China comes in dollars, in US dollars. And therefore the legal entities, they buy and sell dollars and they keep these dollars with the bank.
Okay, and if they keep the dollars with the bank, you then put the dollars not with the Moldovan state, but you put them with the other corresponding with other corresponding banks, right?
Yes, exactly.
So like you might have a line with somebody else, like I don't know, in Romania or wherever. when you run dollars on it.
I can tell you that despite of the size, that Energbank is positioned number 8 in the market between 11 banks by asset side. It has very strong position with the corresponding banks. You know, I can give you example of the top 3 banks which have problems with having corresponding account with big banks like Commerzbank or Bank of New York. Energbank managed to keep this corresponding accounts and having no trouble. So we have direct corresponding accounts with Commerzbank, with Raiffeisen, and with Bank of New York.
Okay.
And this is a big atu, you know, big privilege in comparing to the big banks, which doesn't have this flexibility in operating in foreign currencies.
Yeah. I stop here. Lilian, thank you very much for the answers. I have many more questions regarding how the bank operates, but it gives me a good feel for now. And again, congratulations to the management team that you got hold of a bank. And I look forward to seeing all the integration which you, Tarmo, mentioned in your introduction today. Thank you.
I think if you have some questions, you could call me, could contact me directly. I could provide you and to any other investors more details, you know, in one-on-one direct call.
Well, yeah, why don't we do that after the call then? Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for your questions, Mr. Lehmann. At this stage, a kind reminder, if there are still open topics, feel free to place your questions in the chat or directly raise your hand by audio line. There's another question from the chat. What is your macroeconomic outlook for Moldova market for 2022 and 2023?
Maybe I take the first part and then again hand over to Lilian. So in Moldova, we are certainly not expecting contraction. The reason being that actually, and I really do not want to be cynical here, and we clearly oppose the war, and we wish the war to end as soon as possible. But from very pragmatic terms, what we see is that all the countries which are neighboring Ukraine and Russia, for the matter of fact, are also benefiting. It's not a good word, but it's benefiting from the disrupted trade flows and from disrupted outsourcing flows. So our outlook as a group to Moldovan market actually is positive, meaning that the agricultural output of Moldova will certainly be sold and consumed. The logistics sector of Moldova can benefit from the disruptions in the logistical flows elsewhere. The manufacturing sector of Moldova, which is providing outsourced services to, for instance, car manufacturers, car factories in Germany, that they certainly have more work to do, unless, of course, the car factories themselves will close down in Germany. So in the big picture, the outlook actually, as of today, is rather positive. But now, as to go to the exact numbers, if you are seeking for some wild guess of what the GDP might be, or the growth might be, again, I will pass it over to you, Lilian.
Yes, thank you, Tarmo. Also, speaking about the trend, I consider the trend is positive. It's maybe not very correct to say, but somehow war similar to COVID became our new reality, and people and business got used to work in this environment. Also, we have the highest so far inflation in the region. It's projected by the National Bank to be 27%. There are some explanations coming from the central bank because it's the highest in the region, and the central bank started to react. So the promise and the goal is by the end of Q3, so it to become below 20. And that shall be doable because currently also there is a heavy involvement in macroeconomic, Moldova's macroeconomics by the International Monetary Fund and by our big development partners like European Union and the rest of the big guys. So I see that the trend is quite positive comparing to what it could be, comparing the size of the country and dependence on the neighboring country and what is going on. For example, as you know, the flights, the sky is closed, so we have the only direction for flights is west. The import and export, where 40% was dependent on Ukraine, now is closed, and our companies had to find workarounds via Turkey. So importing from China became a big challenge. But a few weeks ago, it was solved, and now it's replaced. Ukrainian direction is replaced with Turkey direction. So the solutions are found on the go, and I'm quite optimistic about the results by the year end.
All right, thank you for elaborating. Tamo, there's another question on the impact on the business from the Ukraine war. You already mentioned it. Is there anything else you would like to add to this topic?
I think everything important has been already said. So our major headwind actually is inflation for the group. And as to the war, we have made our position clear as a group. We have made a financial contribution to the Central Bank of Ukraine to support the country. And also our employees are volunteering to support the war refugees in Moldova and elsewhere. So this is our stand as regards the war, but in the general macroeconomic viewpoint, it's inflation as a major headwind.
And just with your permission to add a few words, in the recent weeks, we already, we as Moldova feel the outflow of the refugees. So like 1/3 of them went back to Ukraine. So, and from what is discussed with them, most of them are waiting, just to slow down their war-related actions, and most of them will go back, sorry. But now it's really visible in the street, less Ukrainian cars, and borders are quite free.
All right, thank you for elaborating. There is one more question. Maybe you could state your name and your institution before asking your questions, because unfortunately we cannot see it, but your line is now open.
Hi, this is Ryan Lacy from Modern Asset Management. I have a few follow-ups on the Energbank acquisition. First of all, can you specify as of what date you started consolidating Energbank? So is it already consolidated for a full quarter or partially?
It is partially from 1st of February.
Okay. Great. Then I'm just kind of trying to understand the acquisition impact on the cash flow statement. So looking, you said that you paid roughly 20 million for Energbank. Looking at the cash flow statement, I see that there's 22 million cash outflow for other financial investments, and then there's 17 million cash inflow, which kind of leaves us with just 5 million net outflow. And then on the other hand, there's 44.8 million cash inflow from the acquisition of subsidiaries. So maybe you could just kind of elaborate what are behind those figures.
You have to consider that, yes, that 44 million, which is net cash flow from acquisition, the starting point is end of balance, cash balance end of January. So basically, from that point, the calculation starts.
Okay, so this is basically, should we kind of consider this as, the cash that Energbank had on balance sheet, the kind of a consolidation impact of this is in the cash flow statement recorded as cash inflow.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and kind of this 22 million cash outflow and 17 million cash inflow. So what are those kind of?
22 million is, yes, it is cash outflow because of the acquisitions, and then basically once again cash flow in it is with consolidated data as Energbank received, or yes, IuteCredit Europe during the acquisition period, we made money transfer, but at the same time, Energbank received some of the amount to the treasury. And that 17, basically 10 million received directly from parent company, IuteCredit Europe, plus there is also impact from the balance as end of January, which was recorded on a balance sheet of Energbank before consolidation.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, that is, so to say, mix of the starting point from Energbank as of end of January, and now the transactions made from 1st of February. So that's why it is not so simple to get concrete numbers from the cash flow.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I understand. And then in regards to the acquisitions, I understood that you purchased most of the shares from the bank itself. So I mean, were those the treasury shares, or were kind of new shares being issued, or?
Those were the treasury shares which the bank itself had acquired from its previous shareholders, who were declared as legally, I could be wrong, I don't think, maybe they were declared unfit, but the National Bank of Moldova decided that the shareholders cannot hold on their shares, and the bank had to acquire them from the previous shareholders.
Okay. Great. And last one is on another topic. So is there kind of any update on the Kosovo developments as well?
Arbitration proceedings are confidential. I can only repeat my belief that very reasonably there might be arbitration award during this year. And I really don't want to comment on details on the proceedings. I'm not just sure whether I'm authorized to say it, but my belief is that the award realistically might become this year. And also second belief, by the way, is that me as a management, I truly can believe that we have paid most of the legal expenses and most of the work has been done. And we don't see any more huge legal bills coming into the group. The bills also are reported as part of the OPEX of the group, by the way.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. It seems that we have one follow-up question. Ryan, do you still have a follow-up question, or was that an accident?
That was accident, sorry.
All right. So it seems that all questions are answered at the moment. And thank you very much for your participation. Thanks again to you, Tamo, Christel, and Lilian for taking the time answering all the questions. And Tamo, I'm happy to hand over to you for some final remarks.
My closing remark is that we look forward to meet you all again during the next earnings call. And hopefully we will have some more exciting news about our qualitative developments inside the group during second quarter. So let's look forward to this. And also, actually, I am very optimistic that the loan disbursement volumes during second quarter will be significantly higher as compared to first quarter. It's not a promise, but since I have access to some inside information, it looks like this. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.